pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor McCann. Vice Mayor Watkins.
Present.
Councilman Reinhardt.
Present.
Councilman Johannes.
Present.
Councilman Earl.
Present.
We're all present. We got a
Okay.
number.
The three new members, please stand and I will administer oath. You're not new. I said the three new members. The three new members.
That's what I thought You mumbled.
I solemnly swear
Solemnly swear.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
Support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state.
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
Faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of council member
of the office of council member
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
And I'll have you guys sign before you leave
Oh.
together. Okay, I'll now take nominations for mayor, please.
I'll make a nomination for Matt Watkins for mayor.
Is there support?
I'll support it.
Is there any other nominations? If not, I will close nominations. All those in favor for Matt Watkins for mayor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay? All right, I'll have Matt Watkins, the mayor, take over from here.
So nominations for the position of vice mayor.
I nominate Larry McCann.
I'll nominate Bill Earl.
Okay, first I need a second on the nomination for Larry. Okay, hearing none, I will take the second for the nomination of Bill Earl.
I'll second.
All those in favor for Bill Earl to be vice mayor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Congratulations.
Here we are again. Started right
Here we
back.
are, I think we're having deja vu.
Here, Matt, here, Bill, you can have the.
The vice mayor seat.
Got sticky notes.
I got it with neighbors.
Musical chair. Well, I have a short neighborhood.
Yeah. Welcome to the Bill end of things.
It's Bill Earl for the children.
All right, all right.
Public comments. Not seeing any. Move on to the consent agenda. Brandon, do you have anything on that?
Just a correction, for the approval of the minutes, it should read, instead of September 12th, October 10th, for both of the first two, and then the closed session meeting minutes from September 12th. That's all I have to add.
Do you have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second board.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. New business. Approve IT reg proposal for email server migration. Right.
Thank you, Mayor Watkins. Following the Bronson Police Department's law enforcement information network audit, also known as a lien audit, there was one item that the city needs to address. The city's current email host, Google, does not meet the encryption requirements for lien. The city needs to migrate the city's email accounts to Microsoft 365 with GovCloud. I received a proposal from the city's IT contractor to migrate emails for a price of $2,960. $2,960 $1,000 of this is labor for the one-time migration to Microsoft. Annual expenses will be roughly $1,000 a year, depending on the number of accounts we have at any given time. The city would retain the same email addresses we currently have. Questions from the board?
And this does give you all the securities that are required.
Right. Yep.
And just bring you back up to speed, they do maintain and manage the account for us. This third-party vendor.
IT, right? Yeah.
Any other questions? We have a motion to approve the IT rate proposal.
I'll approve the IT rate proposal.
Do we have support?
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Approve the resolution of support to apply for the MTPP Risk Management Grant, Resolution 2209-1.
Thank you, Mayor Watkins. The Michigan Township Participating Plan Risk Management Grant is open now through the end of November. One of the items they can fund is up to $5,000 towards the purchase of a backup generator for facilities. I obtained estimates for the installation of a generator at City Hall. A generator at City Hall would help prevent losses due to power failures and allow the city to remain open during power outages to better serve the public. In your packet, I have a couple of estimates, one from Alliance Electric and Ludwig Electric. Also in your packet is the resolution of support to apply for this grant of up to $5,000 towards the purchase of a City Hall generator. The resolution ensures council is committed to funding the matching portion of the grant. If Alliance Electric is selected, they offer the highest, one I think will better fit our electrical needs and offer the lowest price. The city's match would be about $5,300. A new gas meter may be required and may cost a little bit more to upgrade that. So I would recommend approval of the grant resolution and that the project be awarded contingent upon grant approval. I'd like to be able to move forward with that quickly if the grant is awarded, as pricing for these units is changing quickly.
When will you hear on the grant?
I can't really remember. It's usually a few weeks after they're submitted. Probably, I would say about a month.
And you're asking just for it's contingent upon being approved, the grant being approved.
Right. Unless council wanted to go forward with it regardless of the grant. But I could bring that back to you later if you'd like.
Well, any other questions?
I'd make a motion that we approve this based on getting the grant approval. And yes, if it does not go through, bring it back and once I get a chance to review and look at finances a little bit more, I think.
Okay, sounds good.
Do we have support?
I'll support it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved? Approve the plumber's environmental pay request number 3.
Thank you, Mayor Watkins. Plumbers Environmental is requesting the release of the retainage from the lead service line verification project in the amount of $4,360.10. The engineer stated that all work specified in the contract has been completed in general conformance with the plans and specifications. This amount was held aside until the completion of the work. This is not the final pay request for plumbers, as more work will be done in the spring. I think I mentioned at a previous meeting that the line item for that work under the drinking water asset management grant came in under budget. That's 100% grant from the state through Eagle. we'll have more funds to be able to do more service line verifications in the spring. But they've requested the release of that retainage.
So this is what's gonna happen in the spring is just to basically use up the grant. This is what was contracted originally, correct?
Yes, it was in the contract originally, we didn't use all the funds, so we're gonna use the remainder of those funds for that specific portion of the grant. And then it would all be reimbursed.
And we,
Like some-
and then we did work with the state, they did approve us spending up to the grant amount, so for the additional potholing. So our concern was that we were gonna be limited to the 20% that was written on the original grant application. They issued that addendum to strike the number, because there used to be a dedicated number, so they will allow us to go above that, that was previously done. So this wraps up what was bid, what was supposed to be done, but no work can happen until probably April of next year, so instead of holding on to the retainage. The contract still remains open because they have not released their consent of surety or the bonds or anything. So all those are still in play. The insurance is still there, everything's there, we just will reopen up continue the contract. We won't even reopen it.
So to refresh my memory and to bring Bill up to speed here, how many did we do, and then how many do we anticipate doing?
So you've done 173. So for Bill's information, we have to evaluate randomly lead services throughout the city. So they came up with a formula, and it was about 20% of the system to do a randomization. So it came out to 173 for your 20%. So those have now been done. We're hoping to be somewhere in the 40 to 60 range additional. We'll break down the numbers a little bit more once we get through April and find out how many more we can do. And also we'll be, so there's 3 points we're evaluating. The one is inside the house, which Chuck's crew is doing as we're doing the meter replacement program. So in essence, we're gonna have 100% verification inside all the houses, which will be outstanding. The part that Plumbers is doing is they're verifying at basically the property line, each side of the curb box. So they're, about 18 inches into the property, about 18 inches into the right of way. So we're verifying that hopefully the stuff on the private property matches what Chuck's finding on the inside, and then we have some feel of what's on the right of way side that was put in. The goal is to find out what we have for galvanized, because if we have galvanized, it's considered a lead service, because that's how they connected the water main to galvanized was the lead whip. So that's what we're after. We're not actually exposing at the water main looking for those whips. It's just assumed that if you find galvanized, you're replacing them. So that's what we're after. And the intent with Eagle, where I see this going is, one, it'll tell you probably with very good certainty the percentage of lead services you have in your system. It won't tell you where they are, but it'll tell you that based on that randomization, that you are 60% galvanized or 40. That was the whole purpose of the randomization, was to have the state understand how big a problem this was within the state. The other part is trying to figure out where they are. So that's going to be part of this next round, is with Chuck and myself trying to figure out from the randomization, well, we really didn't get anything on this street or that street or this year of construction of the water main, and try to come up with more of an educated guess of where we want more information to get those lead services verified, so we can extrapolate that with pretty high confidence that this area has galvanized or this has all copper or something like that. So it's starting to shape out that way already based on what we've seen from his data and the plumber's data. But this will help refine some of those questionable areas that aren't quite there. And as for the number, we're hoping to probably do another 40 to 60 in the spring. And they do about 15 to 20 a day. So it's only about a week's worth of work out there for them to do that many.
Okay. Thank you. And any other questions?
No.
Do we have a motion to approve the plumber's environmental pay request number 3?
I'll approve the plumber's environmental pay request number 3.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Approve the traffic control order number 39.
Thank you, Mayor McConnell. The city received a number of letters from property owners. Did I do it? Well, I'm walking, sorry.
Quite all right.
It'll take a few meetings.
Yeah,
Right.
I even wrote
I do that at school all the time.
So the city received a number of letters from property owners requesting a change in traffic controls at the intersection of South Douglas and Compton Streets. Those letters were included in your packet. This is currently a two-way traffic stop on Compton Street. With just those on Compton Street having to stop. It's created some confusion and resulted in some near accidents. Chief Johnson believes the best way to increase safety at this intersection is to make it a four-way stop, so that traffic in each direction has to stop. And this would make it safer for vehicle and pedestrian traffic, especially children going to and from Ryan School. Chief Johnson recommends passage of traffic control order number 39 in your packet to make this intersection a four-way stop.
I was wondering if we could add something to that. I almost got clipped yesterday again, coming east and west. Could we put like a sign that says four-way stop?
Should be included with stop signs. That we should add four-way stops on all the signs. That way they see when they come to the stop sign that's a four-way.
I really appreciate that, because I was coming heading south yesterday. My wife said, watch that car, and that car come up, didn't even stop to come up.
That'd be what I would suggest, that on all four stop signs that there be. It's usually not a real big sign, but it's just one that adds it, that it just shows it's four-way. I would recommend that.
He says four-way stop. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Was there any thoughts on potentially, maybe just temporarily, putting something a little farther back, temporary, saying, look for change, or
Stop ahead signs. We discussed that.
Something, even if we do it for 6 months or whatever, just to, because.
It's an abrupt change.
It is.
It is. Yeah. We Brandon and I talked about that, about putting like a stop ahead sign or something back farther, so you get a warning before you get to that. Yes.
Well, especially we're in school time, it's dark, there's a lot of traffic in that area.
Yep.
People aren't gonna pay attention right away, so I think putting a secondary sign temporarily that says stop ahead.
Well, I understand snow's coming, unfortunately, but thinking something like an orange barrel with stop sign on all four sides of that, maybe in the very center of that.
People will run into it.
Something.
You put it out in the road, they'll hit it.
Probably.
And then too, when the guys go to plow, they got to try to go around it, otherwise they're going to roll it.
Like I
And
said, just temporary, at least when you first put it up, maybe for the first week or so.
there might be something as too that we might be able to get some of those flashing construction lights that we might be able to attach to the post.
They have
That
fancy stop
flashes
signs.
or something.
They have red lights all the way around the stop sign now.
Yeah.
Something that draws attention to it.
Yeah.
We could go pick up some of those.
Yeah, there's also
I think there's one in
right.
Central.
There's also a tree that I want to double check. But if you're coming east on Compton from Ruggles, you get to that stop sign. There's a big tree on the corner that if someone's coming south off of 12, that if they can get behind that and they don't see that and they take to pull out, that might be a vision obstruction there. I want to double check that. But I think on the other corners we're okay. But I think there's a tree in that corner, which would be the northwest corner. That I think it's a big tree that might be a vision obstruction. We might need to take a look at that too.
Pretty good size. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I mean, all the other intersections around there are all four-way stops.
All four ways.
That's just one of the ones that wasn't. So that's my recommendation.
Any questions, concerns, additional questions, concerns? We have a motion to approve the traffic control order number 39.
I will make a motion to approve traffic order, number 39.
We have support.
I support it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved.
Thank you.
The administrative consent order update.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Watkins. Mike from Prine and Newhoff is here tonight. I kind of wanted to give an update on the administrative consent order and some of the next steps moving forward. And should maybe start a little bit from the beginning and give an overview for Bill.
Sure. So for Bill's purposes, the city is under an administrative consent order. It's been in the process for about 3 years, give or take. And for basically violating the flow requirements at the wastewater treatment plant. You just have high flows there because of infiltration, primarily from your system. It still does a good job treating it, just there's an occasional violation, but you're violating on a daily basis the flow requirement that's in your permit. So the city's entered a consent order to settle all the claims against this, but there's a bunch of requirements to bring this under compliance. So the first one was to submit for an intent to apply by November 1st, which was a way to apply for funding through the state of Michigan for grants and loans through the state revolving loan fund program. So that has been submitted, and then they have, we've actually had our intent to apply team meeting. So Eagle set up a meeting with the district engineers and the state offices in the city and myself, just to talk about the process of going through an SRF program. So there was some, so that's kind of the first milestone that was in there, was this intent to apply. The next, we'll go back to a little bit to what this program is too. The next step is the corrective action plan. So we've consolidated a bunch of our stall reports and came up with what is the fixes and solutions to bring your system back under control for the infiltration system. So we devised it into 2 phases. We worked up a whole schedule thing, and that's what the consent order is based on. So we're actually working on the corrective action plan. Majority of that is all written. What's going to take, cost estimates, things of that nature. What's missing out of it right now is the financial plan, and we're working with Warren Kramer for that the city is going to be using for the financial aspects to see what that does to your rates. The odd thing about doing this whole financial plan is we all think it's pretty much pointless, because they'll assume that you don't get any loans and grants, and so it's going to make your rates look like they double. But in real life, we don't see that. You're going to end up with some type of loan and grant program, but the financial plan, they have to show that you don't get anything. So once again, I think it's a pointless piece of an appendice, but they have to go through that effort. So that one's supposed to be submitted by January. And then the next major step is the SRF and the USDA. So there's 2 primary funding sources to fund sewer projects. One's through USDA, Rural Development, and the other is the SRF. The intent to apply is the first step on an SRF. So those are both, the USDA can be submitted at any given time, so there's kind of an open window. They want that submitted by June 1st of 2023, which is the same deadline as the SRF 2023. And so what they're doing is they're basically pairing each of them against each other to figure out which one gives you the best financial package. So from there, they'll go through the process. You'll go through the process of getting scored and such like that on both these programs, and they'll come back with an offer of whatever that grant amount is and your loan amount, and then you can move forward with the project. So currently we are working on both those applications, the USDA application, which is basically a large engineering report, and a large environmental report to make sure we're not violating historic properties and tribal plans and wetlands and all this other fun stuff. So there's 2 large reports with both of these. One is the engineering background of why you're doing this and costs and such like that. The other is the environmental part of that. So both of them very similar, and the council's already approved us doing those projects. So we're in that process right now of writing those documents right now. We have that on those. And then the next milestone is actually construction plans to actually build something. And so in the consent order, those construction plans are slated to happen, to be submitted to Eagle by no later than December of 23. So we've actually just started some of the design and the survey work. I was actually just out at the Walker Street lift station right now, and there's a bunch of stakes out there and spray paint on the ground and such. I actually drew for the church what this proposed improvement might look like out there. We're looking at another one at Corey Street for an easement. And then most of the project overall will be a wastewater treatment plant. So almost, I want to say, probably a third of it is probably at the treatment plant, at the wastewater treatment plant. And then a large, I wouldn't say a third, but probably close to a third, maybe a little bit more, is actually on your pipes, grouting and lining your pipes and fixing the water that's coming into the system. And then there's some surface improvements. It turns out there were some storm structures that tie to your sanitary. There's some other stuff that will be resolved in part of that, and then there's the 2 lift stations that have reached their useful life that we're doing that. So that's kind of the overall project, is lift stations, grouting is a big piece of it, some lining, disconnecting to the storm structures, and the wastewater treatment plant, which is a new Headworks UV system. And I'm not a waste guy, I forgot what the 4 big projects were, but there's 4 big ones at the wastewater treatment plant out there. But what was interesting about the intent to apply meeting, I'll jump back to that for a minute. So they are just coming out with scoring right now. They just submitted because they didn't know how to score all these yet. So they just came out with a scoring plan. And they came up with, you're probably gonna be, we'll say, most likely at the very top end of all the scoring. Because of a consent order is gonna give you a boatload of points. You fall into what's tentatively is called a significant overburden community, which means you're in the lowest 10% of communities from a financial standpoint, which will put you like 25 points out of 100. So that will also get you way up at the top on that score. So when we talk to them at the intent to apply, it's like, you're going to be up there. I mean, very, very highly up there. So getting funding is very, almost, not say a done deal, but very likely on that, because most communities don't have an ACO and you don't want an ACO, but that's beside the point. Plus you're going to be likely a significant overburden. Where that will come into play is there's a significant overburden and an overburden community, which is the top, or the low, I guess it would be the bottom 20% of the communities on financing. And those are the ones that they're really trying to push grant money to, is both the significant overburden and the overburden, where all this ARPA, IJJ money, all this stuff, it's all being funded through that program. There's been talk, and there's been talk, but it seems like it's got some footprint in there, that if you're a significant overburden, they're talking about potentially 100% grant, which nothing's out on that yet, but there has been talk of that, and the significant overburden somewhere is in that 30 to 40% of straight up grant, just cancel it. So also at the intent to apply meeting, they also informed us that you can apply up to $20 million for a community for sewer and $20 million for water. So we are also submitting a DWRF application to submit for $20 million of lead service replacement and your replacements of your water main from 1932, I think it was, most of your water mains from. So with that intent to apply with the 20 million, we've kind of are revising what we were thinking of doing in phase 1 and phase 2 and moving everything as much as we can into phase 1 to take the best opportunity of that instead of, if we, initially our estimates were, we'll say 15 and 5. Let's not keep that 5 in phase 2. Can we move a chunk of that up into phase 1 and potentially fund that? I mean, even if it was an 80% grant, that would be significant on a $20 million project. I mean, anything on that. So we did submit, to talk to USDA also. USDA, they don't call it overburden, but they call it disadvantaged communities type thing. You fell in their category. They already ran some preliminary numbers, and you fall into theirs. When you fall into the low category, they give you a much better interest rate on your loan. So there's a disadvantaged rate, an intermediate, then a non-rate. But you would land in the poverty rate, they call it, which is a low interest rate. I think right now it's 2.2% or something like that. But that's also where they apply loans to, or grants to. And they can apply up to, theoretically up to 100, but normally the highest they would ever go is 75%. Paul from USDA said you guys are actually a fantastic candidate, probably would qualify for 75% on that. They don't think they'll probably have that much money for grant available to give you to get that 75%. But the ACO requires us to submit at least the USDA application to put them up against SRF on that. The bad thing about SRF is rates are a little bit higher in that you have to do Davis-Bacon and the federal wage rates versus USDA does not need the federal wage rates and stuff like that. So there's some pros and cons to each of those type things, but that's why we'll have to run an analysis once we get the 2 offers from the 2 communities on that. So the SRF, from what I've heard, is they did have over 500 intent to applies submitted, so they're absolutely swamped. They're not actually having individual meetings anymore with communities. They're going to just do a webinar with all other communities. So fortunately, we were able to get in early and actually have a one-on-one with them. So they'll probably, the applications are due in June 1st. They'll probably take to go through the project plans and review all these. It's going to take them several months. So September is probably really when you'll know where you land, what the offers are, and all that type of stuff for SRF. But according to the timeline, the construction plans already have to be in by December. So we can't wait till, did we get funded and then start the design? So we are actually working on that process there. Also, along that whole scenario, is due to the design aspect of this. The city, Brandon, has been talking with Warren and the bond attorneys and financial advisors about securing a bank loan, a ban anticipation note it's called, to pay for the engineering, so you're not pulling that all out of your general funds or sewer funds until the point that you can close on the loan and then reimburse that loan and pay it off. So it's a very common thing, it's called a ban. They're very familiar with it. You do actually, we had talked about maybe tonight having to have a resolution to go forward with that, but due to your ACO, you actually are not required to have public hearings or anything on that. The city is, according to the legal counsel, can just go straight forward and go to a bank and issue a ban on that. So Brandon and Warren and them will be working on determining what dollar amount and how to carry that through for a year or so to fund the design of these projects to get to that point of closing. So there's a lot going on. Unfortunately, there's a lot of report writing, a lot of responses. I know Chuck and Brandon's been involved in way too more stuff than they probably ever wanted to know about their stuff, even though they know their systems very well. So I guess with that, if I didn't forget anything that I can think of, open up to questions, or if you have any.
I would just mention that the 20 million would be for water and sewer, and we're looking probably at about 20 million in just wastewater.
And then 20 million also for potentially lead services and water main replacement. But that would not move forward unless you got funded. I mean, if you didn't get a DWRF fund with grants, you would just not do the project.
A lot of information.
But once again, if they are going to give you 100% grant, and because you're significant overburden, it's worth rolling the dice to submit an application and see where you score. And
Go for the gusto.
exactly.
Now, I guess a quick question I had, I know, Mike just said that you've been a part of these meetings and everything else. With your pending retirement, what does that do, I mean, with the?
I'll still be on, on a limited basis, so I'll be involved still.
So, okay.
Be up to 3 years, and it's something you're gonna be
Yeah.
like a day a week or something.
I'm more worried about the Eagle guys. Those guys seem to switch positions all over the place. So our district engineer is not the one that's dealt with any of this stuff. And it's like every time we have a meeting, we have 3 new people at the meeting, and you have to start this whole education process over. So I'm more worried at the Eagle level than I am at the local level.
Anybody have any questions or concerns on that?
No, I appreciate the update, thank you.
There's a lot there.
There is a lot there and a lot.
But
Going
it's
on.
moving.
It's moving, and obviously that was the
That's
whole purpose of
important.
the ACO, was to come up with a timetable to keep things moving. So, that's what Eagle is concerned about, is you can keep saying you're gonna do stuff, but now they have a legal document to actually hold the hand of
Yeah.
making things go forward.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions.
City-
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, yes. City staff comments.
Halloween went well. Weather kind of held out for us, so we had a lot of kids come up to get candy up at the police and fire station. Time change has altered darkness and daylight hours, obviously, so want people to still watch out for kids, darkness and that. And Thanksgiving's coming up, and everybody have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too.
That's all I have.
Okay, real quick on the fire department, Karen just advised me today that we do have just shy of $4,000 coming from the state of Michigan. That's our reimbursement grant for first responder training and recruitment. That was for some of our members to go through emergency medical training. And the way that the fire department's organized, we did not qualify to apply for that grant, but we were able to do through the city. So I appreciate Brandon and Karen working with me on that. We still have not been offered an ambulance by Life Care. There were a few questions that I had on the contract that was presented to me. I'm still waiting for some clarification on that. So hopefully that project at some point in time in the near future will move forward. Are you familiar with that, Mr. Earl?
Yes.
Okay.
I've heard through medical control some of the discussions that were happening.
Perfect, good. Wanted to make sure you were up to date on that. The other thing that we're working on right now, it's not something that affects the city in a large way, but we are doing feasibility study on building a satellite station south of town. It would be, as we would envision it, on the line between Gilead and Noble Township. And if we were to, we're building a new tanker. One of the townships that voted no against the new tanker, they weren't against buying a new truck. That what they didn't care for was when we go to sell a 20-year-old fire truck, basically we get scrap metal price out of it. And they wanted to know if we could keep that truck. And I said, well, if we had a place to keep it, we could certainly do that. And real briefly, it's going to be generalized language here, but your homeowner's insurance is based on how far away you live from a fire station, generally speaking. So those that live in Gilead and Noble Township, if they're beyond 5 road miles from the station, they're an ISO 10, the company that rates fire departments. That means you have no fire department, and your insurance is based on that. If we were to build a satellite station and take that old fire truck when the new one comes in, and put it in that, which would be as simple as a pole barn, then they would be with those that would be within 5 road miles of that station, that would qualify as having a fire department. Also, it would reduce the response times if they were to suffer a fire. And the reason it makes sense to look at doing this to the south of us is we have 6 or 7 firefighters that live within a couple of miles of that proposed location. The only effect that would have upon the city is that would allow us to have 2 tankers instead of 1, because the truck that we're replacing carries 3,500 gallons of water. If we get a working fire in the city, you've got about half hour, 45 minutes of water supply based on the tower. Beyond that, we're going to deplete it. Both pumps running on high will give us about 1,500 gallons a minute. That's maybe enough to supply 1 fire engine. So if there are large fires in the city, there would be a benefit to the city on having that second tanker. As we talked about last month, we've got some irrigation hookups that we have that we can get water from a separate source. So that would be basically the only effect that it would have for you as a city. But I'm very excited about the prospect. I think it is a way to have a huge impact on those that live to the south of town. I think it's probably one of the biggest projects that we've looked at since I've been on the fire department. So again, I'm very excited about it, and I'll keep you up to speed on how that goes.
It is exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
City manager comments.
Thank you, Mayor Watkins. Just mentioned the water tower painting project is completed and then was put back in service on October 29th. The temporary pressure tank worked well for us and helped reduce the strain on our wells, so they weren't constantly operating. We appreciate the community's patience during this project and want to thank the fire department for finding a solution to fight fires in the city and neighboring township while the tower was down. That setup is through pumping water from an irrigation well at US 12 in Perham. And the day after it was installed, it was used for a fire. So I think it'll be a great benefit to the community. That's all I have.
Council comments. Rick.
Yeah, first to start out, Larry, thank you for all the years of what you've done for us. Been a great,
I'm not going away.
No, I know that, but you've been a great mayor, and we appreciate everything you've done. I'd like to welcome Matt to his new position. I see nothing but great coming. You very quick thinking, smart, and you don't hold back. And that's what we need, we need to pull forward. Bill, welcome back.
Thank you.
I see the same with you. We appreciate you coming back and joining us. And I see a lot of good we're gonna be able to do this year, this coming new year. We got a lot of things I think we can pull out of that. Billy, hi.
You don't have to thank everybody.
Well, no, I wanna say thanks to everybody and welcome aboard. It's gonna be great.
Larry.
Congratulations to you. Age has a way of changing your outlooks. So you will come into it with a different outlook than I have. And so that's a good thing. So congratulations. Bill, welcome back, and congratulations on your new role. The city had an excellent Halloween with the spooks right down here. I thought that was great. We have a lot of kids here. As far as I know, it's a very safe, with very little any vandalism.
Yeah.
So that's just a great thing for the city. So, that's all I have.
Larry, thanks for your lifetime of service here in the fire department and everywhere. Congratulations, Matt and Bill, on your new roles. And thanks, Scott, for checking into that satellite station. I think that's gonna be sweet. That's all I have.
Just a little thing here. Scott did his thesis for his master's degree on just doing this. So he had a lot of background on it already done. And then the opportunity comes sliding along, so he was able to put that to good use.
Yeah, with the ARC funds being available, that's, I think what, and we're gonna, real quick, just, look for possible grants. So we'll leave no stone unturned for, funding.
Just thanks everybody for having me back. I look forward to working with the team and making some great headway in the next year. Couple years, however long the people determine they want me here.
You and Matt got the 4 years, so I didn't say that.
We got the
You
what?
a 2-year term, and you and Matt got the 4 years.
Oh.
Top 2 vote getters get the 4-year,
Oh.
and you guys were 1 vote apart.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I was gonna call for
That
a
was really
recount.
close.
but-
Those 2 are 1 vote apart.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Again, if I don't.
Which one did the other guy?
You can't vote for me, I voted for you. But
I pulled it.
thanks everybody for, welcoming me back. I hopefully will not let anybody down in the council. I see some things that we need to work hard on, so I look forward to being part of that.
Thank you. Scott, great idea with the satellite station. And thank you for the update on the ambulance, I was gonna ask that. Mike, thanks for the update on the ACO, the 100% max on the grant, that was.
We're hoping,
news to me.
we got
Yeah,
our
that
fingers
was-
crossed that that's gonna pan
Yeah,
through,
that was news, that's gonna be
but
big.
that would be huge if they follow through on the rumors.
So, Chuck, it looks like, weather's kinda playing in our favor right now. Most of the streets look very good as far as leaf pickup and, do you have like a date in mind that we're gonna?
We plan on being out there the rest of this month, and then, if we need to, we'll do the first week in December, but hopefully by the end of this month, we'll be done.
I'll set the plows now.
Yeah.
I believe that's it. Don't have anything else. Do I have a motion to go into closed session for the manager evaluation and contract negotiations?
I'll give you a motion to close into closed session